maybe the ones that stand out to me the most are just some of the reviews of the podcasts that Bob and I do, where it's a dad writing in saying, this is something I played in the car with my kids, and it opens up all these conversations about God. This is something they listen to again, just, laugh, connect, and have conversations about the things that we're talking about on the podcast, because it's real things. Like, we're talking about the importance of, like Bob said, obeying your parents, or reading the Bible, or sharing your faith with somebody, right? It's kind of like a chocolate bar with a vitamin inside, right? You eat the chocolate bar and you're loving it, but then you get something out of it too. And that's kind of all of Average Boy, whether it's the humor column, the books, or the podcast.
Hey, look out. It's Faith Talk today. I'm Rick Probst. Hope you're having a groovy weekend. Speaking of groovy guys, we've got a couple of groovy guys we're going to talk to in just seconds. It is Jesse Florea. He's the editor of Focus on the Family's Clubhouse magazine, and comedian Bob Smiley. We'll pick their brains in just a few about a book they've written together, Devotions for Super Average Kids, Book 1 and 2. But first, thank you so much for downloading our show. Ezra, my amazing producer, says you guys are crushing it. I don't get it. Must be the guests. And that's okay with me. So thank you so much. Go to faithtalkatlanta.com or wherever you get your podcast. Jesse and Bob, sounds like a morning show. Hey, guys.
I love it. Hey, Rick.
Hey, good morning. I know that you guys do some amazing stuff apart. Of course, Bob being on the road for probably seems like forever doing comedy. We were just kind of going through, I don't know, we were just yesterday, so with the OC Supertones and more. So you've been on the road and touched so many lives, Bob. Thank you. And Jesse, you as well. You've written so many books and touched so many lives with Focus on the Family. We want to talk about this project you guys have been working on together. But I do want to know, how in the world did you guys collide?
That's a great story. Bob will fill in some gaps here too, but this is going back, to late 90s, early 2000s. Bob had, the first time I saw a comedy CD from him come through, and he started writing these, was it Friday Funnies? I was getting emails from your publicist, Bob, and Bob was writing these incredibly funny stories. Right. And so I reached out to him and I said, hey, do you want to write for Clubhouse magazine every month? Let's talk about, potential character, what the character would be called, what that might look like. And so, Bob, being the comedic genius that he is, he's just like, I'm going to write about myself and I'm going to call it Average Boy. And so we started, I want to say it was June of 2002. We've been doing this for about over 22 years.
Wow.
Bob's been writing comedy in the magazine every single month. And it just continues to amaze. Like, it doesn't get old. It doesn't get tired. Bob has so many ideas. He has a lot of boys. And I think most of the stories are real life, either his life or his boy's life, and just really, really fun stuff in the magazine. One of the most popular columns in Clubhouse magazine. And then that spun off into 4 books, a podcast that's really, really popular, the official Average Boy podcast, and a lot of different things. So the Average Boy universe is blowing up.
Yeah, so my side of it is my first CD was coming out. I had just gotten off tour with the Newsboys. It was the Love Liberty Disco Tour where they made me wear an all-white disco suit. And and I just bleached my hair blonde, so I look like a used Q-tip. But I just gotten off tour with that. I did a CD. I sent it out to people. And then I thought, what would it be like if I pretended to be a publicist? No, that's not true. I actually did have a publicist. But yeah, they contacted Focus on the Family, and Jesse reached out to me, and I never wanted to be a comedian. Like, that wasn't a goal of mine, because I never thought that it was even possible. But one of my bucket lists was I wanted to be published in a magazine. I thought, if I could just get one humor, because I grew up reading humor articles by people that I really admired. And so one of my bucket lists was to just get published. I just wanted to do it one time. And so when Jesse, contacted me, I was like, here we go. I'm going to, be able to like do one of my bucket lists pretty early in life. And so did that article, and we started getting fan mail, and people wanted to hear more of Average Boy. And like Jesse said, it's turned into 4 books now, and the latest one, I guess we can say this, but the latest one it came out Tuesday, and it hit #1 on Amazon in its kid category. And so it's I love that kids are still enjoying reading funny stuff. It's a great way when you can get kids to laugh, to be able to get some biblical encouragement to children. And so, yeah, it's been a wild ride and lots of fun.
Jesse Florea and Bob Smiley with us together. They're doing some amazing things. You can find out more about Jesse at focusonthefamily.com. BobSmiley.com is how you can find Bob. And if you watch, this is probably an older dry bar comedy that I watched yesterday. It's the one where you wore the band T-shirt, which I loved. And I think one of my favorite jokes was the one, well, the two, the one about being on the airplane, and if it goes into the water, you don't want the cushion that you're sitting on. That just that was very, very funny. And you and your wife couldn't have kids. That's what your mother-in-law said. So, in fact, I was watching it and prepping for the interview, and my wife, who works in another office here at the house, she happened to be going by, and she was cackling. So I said, well, I'm talking to Bob and Jesse tomorrow. Do you guys find that you have so much material you could write books forever, or are there times when you have to kind of go into the boardroom and get a white, white easel with a China marker or a magic marker, and just say, okay, what do you think, Jesse? What do you think, Bob? What are we going to do here? I don't know.
Well, I'll answer that because that's one of my favorite things of working with Jesse. I rarely hit writer's block, or I rarely hit a moment where I don't have a story or can't think of something. But as soon as I do, I'll email Jesse or text him and just be like, hey, what, give me a good topic. And, because he's the editor of Clubhouse magazine and he's constantly in that world, he's always got really good suggestions. So I think one of the great things about us putting, these 4 books out is we really haven't hit any roadblocks. We've written all 4 books fairly easy and, come up with a storyline. He helps structure everything. So it does have some, overall themes and plots throughout it all. And of course, I couldn't do it without him also because he corrects all the spelling problems. In fact, I think I'm one of the few authors that has to, I think they give me an extra month to turn in my manuscript just so Jesse has time to go in and correct all the spelling mistakes on that.
But the great part of working with Bob is, not only, and again, you saw his comedy show, so it's not just funny, right? And it is funny, it's really funny, but he always has a point, right? He always has a biblical point. He's always encouraging kids in their faith. He's always encouraging second chances. And kind of this character, Average Boy, what's so endearing about Average Boy to me is that he's not great at anything, right? But that's okay because he actually is really, really good at following Jesus. That's where he gets his confidence, right? That's where he gets his identity. And so he's not a great athlete. There's others, but when it comes down to the bottom line is he's optimistic. He's hopeful for the future. And those themes and everything, I think that's why it's resonating with kids so much these days is because kids need that hope, right? They need to hear that they can live for Christ. And, sure they'll have a bully who will bully them sometimes, but if they surround themselves with really good friends, and Average Boy has some amazing, amazing friends. So I'm guessing, Bob, are based maybe on real life people knowing you.
Yeah, 2 of them are based on my childhood friends. And then, of course, Everly, who's in the newest book, Average Boys Above Average Summer. Everly is actually Riley Armstrong's daughter. And we were all doing a camp together out here in Texas. And she was running around catching frogs and everything. And I was like, okay, Everly needs to be a character in the next book. And so so every once in a while I'll pull something I see, nowadays, but a lot of it is from the past. But you're exactly right. I think why Average Boy resonates with kids is because he's not some big, huge superhero. He's just an average kid. He deals with bullies. He deals with struggling to obey his parents. And, he gets himself in a lot of crazy adventures, and he just tries to do what Jesus has created him to do and tries to follow the word. And it's important for him to know what Jesus actually said. So, he's reading the Bible all the time. And so I think kids are resonating like, oh, here's somebody that I can look up to who's just as average as me,
Jesse and Bob with us. You can follow Jesse on Focus on the Family, and bobsmiley.com. Averageboy.org is a great place to go to as well. You guys no doubt have had emails, texts, kids messaging you over the years. Pick out maybe one that's really touched your life. Jesse?
Wow. Yeah, that's a hard question because there have been so many. And that's one of the great parts of being a Focus on the Family, and especially Clubhouse Magazine, is kids, because of the Child Online Protection Act, they can't email us. They have to mail letters. And so we get so many letters from kids that just say, like, Average Boy is my favorite part of the magazine, and he really, encouraged me to follow God. But maybe the ones that stand out to me the most are just some of the reviews of the podcasts that Bob and I do, where it's a dad writing in saying, this is something I played in the car with my kids, and it opens up all these conversations about God. We laugh. And when Bob writes these, Bob and I go back and forth when we're putting together the podcast. And, there's plenty of jokes for the adults, right? There's stuff that the kids wouldn't get, but then there's also those, corny. I tell corny dad jokes. That's kind of my job on the podcast, tell Jesse jokes and a lot of groaners there. But it's so cool to see people put in those reviews saying, we listen on the way to school. It starts off our day just focused on Jesus. We listen on the way to church. It kind of calms us down. Because sometimes, I know when my kids were young, you get those like family arguments on the way to church just because you try to get everybody out of the house and everything. Right. It's so stressful.
Yeah.
This is something they listen to again, just, laugh, connect, and have conversations about the things that we're talking about on the podcast, because it's real things. Like, we're talking about the importance of, like Bob said, obeying your parents or reading the Bible or sharing your faith with somebody, right? It's kind of like a chocolate bar with a vitamin inside, right? You eat the chocolate bar and you're loving it, but then you get something out of it too. And that's kind of all of Average Boy, whether it's the humor column, the books, or the podcast.
Yeah, and for me, I had a single mom come to my show, and she had 3 boys, and she was just telling me after the show that her middle son was really dealing with some bullies. And the third Average Boy book is Average Boys Above Average Year, and he goes to this new school. He deals with these 3 bullies that he calls the terrible threesome, and how he dealt with those bullies throughout the book in a kind of a comical way, but also a very scriptural-based way, really helped. She was telling me really helped her middle son deal with that, kind of walk through him being bullied at school. And she had tears in her eyes, and, the whole time I was just sitting there, I was like, man, I'm so grateful to be a part of this, this series that Jesse and I have created. And, and I think it was even more heartfelt because it was in person. And she was, she was telling me, and she had her 3 boys running around the lobby. So I actually got to see them. And so, we have tons of examples like that, but that's probably the one that really stood out because, a single mom, the world is vying for our kids' attention, and to have a tool that we've given her to be able to help keep her kids on the right path is just, it's pretty exciting.
Jesse Florea, Focus on the Family, Bob Smiley, comedian. Together, separately, they do amazing things, and together, they are superheroes. Real quick, we're wrapping up the show, but what's next for both of you separately and or together, Bob?
I did a claymation Christmas movie that's coming out in December. I play the voice of one of the main snowmen. I actually, in 2 days, I'm filming my 3rd Dry Bar special in Provo, Utah. So I'm about to fly out and do that. And Rick, thank you for watching my other Dry Bar special. I saw that it got 1 extra view yesterday, so I wondered who that was. So I appreciate you watching that. I thought it was my mom, but I called her and she said, I don't watch that stuff. So, but yeah, so I've got we're still like out promoting the new book, Average Boys Above Average Summer. And then I've got, a Christmas movie coming out and a new comedy special coming out. So, quite busy, on the road a lot.
Jesse?
That's fantastic. I mean, I love how Bob is so active there. I just turned in a book the other day on biblical archaeology and biblical literacy. So a book for kids that I worked on with a co-writer, Karen Whiting, called Digging Deeper Devotions. It won't be coming out till 2025, but just a great book that tells a biblical story and then digs into the archaeology to show, hey, when Luke wrote in Acts, this particular term for this particular government official, he got that detail right? He got that detail right. And if he gets those little details right, all the bigger details are right too, right? That Jesus came and he died for your sins and he rose from the dead. And so that was a really fun project. That was the last 8 months of my life, and turned that in on Tuesday. So that was a really fun book. But again, just being able to work with Bob and again, bring those biblical lessons with humor. I think one of the reasons I love working with Bob is I read this stat, and again, it was on the internet, so it's true, that you retain 80% more when you're laughing.
I believe that.
And I swear that's true. I don't know if it's because the blood flows and your brain opens up, but that's kind of the idea of Average Boys, like learning those biblical lessons and laughing and having it stick and create life change. So it's, I know Bob and I will be doing more stuff, more podcasts, more books. And just look forward to, again, continuing to further God's kingdom through Average Boy.
Jesse Florea, Bob Smiley, together amazing, and separately they are amazing. Gentlemen, you guys are doing so much for the kingdom of God. Thank you for keeping on. We appreciate you. Would love to have you both back, either together or separately. I think we'd love to talk about your projects coming up. And, of course, push all your stuff. AverageBoy.org is a great place to go to. BobSmiley.com. Jesse's books, no doubt, that focus on the family, and also at Amazon, wherever you get your books and wherever you get your podcasts. Check out theirs. Speaking of podcasts, thank you for checking out ours. And wherever you get your podcasts, get ours and pass it along. And join us next week for another amazing show. Have a great week. I'm Rick Probst. This is Faith Talk Today. See ya.